I want to play this clip of Marjorie Taylor Greene because it really does feel like there is, from top to bottom, or from side to side, within the context of this new, more fervent, or I should say, resurgent, and maybe we can even address that. You know, it's not like the racism went away, but it does definitely feel like the existence of a black president sort of made some of these people a little bit more white-knuckled in terms of holding on to, and I think what we're seeing is that white knuckles, and it gets pretty ugly. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene, and you know, a lot of people say, well, you know, she's an outlier. She's like one of the top fundraisers in the Republican Party. I mean, literally one of the top fundraisers.
An outlier, you said. Yeah. Okay. I was like, did you say ally? No, you said
outlier. Outlier. Like a marginal figure. But in fact, she's like one of the most prolific fundraisers in the Republican Party. And that is, and her power is indicative of that within at least as a spokesperson. Here she is talking about the Buffalo shooting, and particularly the House passing a law regarding domestic terrorism.
I rise in opposition to this bill. I find it shocking to hear language coming from my colleagues across the aisle accusing Republicans of the horrific shooting in Buffalo, when in fact the shooter's manifesto himself, he acted as a lone wolf. No Republican had anything to do with that. I also find it shocking to hear these accusations coming from the party that supported BLM riots that caused over $2 billion in damage in cities and communities across the country. Now, when we're talking about identity politics, we should remind one another that there were 6 people murdered and 62 others injured by a black American who drove his car through a Christmas parade in Waukesha. There was also a black American that shot and injured 23 people on a New York City subway. I'm not hearing any of those examples as domestic terrorism from my colleagues across the aisle, and I don't understand why. I think these acts should be blamed on the people that are doing them, not on people's identity and their skin color. Another thing that is wrong with this bill is it provides unlimited money to profile
Pause
Americans.
it for 1 second. I just wonder where she would be on like questions of so-called Muslim terrorism. I mean,
also, it's not that he was white, it was that he had a white supremacist manifesto.
Exactly.
Right.
There's plenty of white people who go around shooting up other people just in a more random, but continue.
That the Department of Justice says are white supremacist. That's unlimited money. That's why Democrats want to pursue every single conservative in America, simply because they want to choose who is a white supremacist and not. The Speaker herself has called Republicans enemies of the state.
30 additional seconds.
The gentlelady is recognized.
If the Speaker does not like Republicans' politics and considers us enemies of the state, we all know what domestic terrorist will mean to Democrats. That will mean anyone who stands in their way in their lustful quest for power. This would be parents that are trying to hold people accountable with their tax dollars for how their children are taught, or anyone else that they want to blame for something they want to use for politics. Thank you. I yield back.
Now, he, I think, was a terrorist because, or a white supremacist because of the white supremacist manifesto he wrote, and then the terrorism that he committed. It's pretty straightforward.
You know, Ben, do you think this is just identity politics or what?
I think it's the best reason to be pro-choice, because if anybody should have ever been aborted, it should have been Neanderthal Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I mean, there's definitely an argument. I think that we would be far better off were she not here. But I think it's an example of just sort of, this is a top-down type of scenario. And when you have one of the biggest fundraisers of the Republican Party ignoring the fact that the guy literally in his manifesto said this was terrorism. Like that he was the agenda here was to literally to terrorize in this regard.
You want to call all white people terrorists. That's just what you want to do, right?
And let's just listen to Tucker Carlson where he takes this, because there's the Fox News host and Marjorie Taylor Greene are really, I mean, in many respects within the system in which they operate, almost indistinguishable. Granted, Tucker Carlson probably has slightly more access to Donald Trump, has dined with more Republican presidents than Marjorie Taylor Greene, and maybe slightly have more access. But they're both. I mean, they are both instrumental into developing the talking points for the Republicans.